What's up, everybody? My name is Lee Shaner, and you're tuned into You Feel Me. This month's theme of the way that music makes us feel is deep. And we're sitting here with Cautious Clay, and the reason that we picked you for deep is because not only because your songs are deeply emotional and personal, but also you seem to have a very deep understanding of music, multi-instrumentalist, et cetera, and so we just thought that you fit the theme of the month perfectly. And so yeah, welcome, thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, most definitely. So let's get right into it. Things have been picking up over the last couple of years for you. Busy schedule. You've had a few songs and videos that have gone like absolutely bananas. How's life been changing over the last couple of years?
Yeah, man, it's been a very gradual change.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what I was doing was very much just intuitive for me, and like a lot of like the planning around my music and like what I wanted to do and think about was all just me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've slowly begun to like add people into that fold over the last 2-3 years, but it's definitely just been like very unexpected and very just very freeform.
Yeah. Is that jarring to start letting people in and having to like trust people with what I'm sure is a very deeply personal subject matter to you? Like letting those people into your inner circle is a little scary at times?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I mean, I also don't have like a big group of people that I'm working with.
Yeah.
So that's kind of kept it pretty familiar to me. Like it was very recently that I even like brought on like a business manager type person to like help with that. You know what I mean? And like I was pretty much just me and my manager, and then I have a lawyer. So like, yeah, that's the team.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we've kind of slowly added people over the last couple months, early 2019, late 2018. And yeah, it's been an adjustment. But I'm glad that I have like the beginnings of what it was very, very clear to me, and they're good people. So
that's tight. Let's talk about the beginnings. Where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
In Cleveland?
Yeah.
What was Cleveland like growing up?
Man, Cleveland was just like such a weird town. It's like there's a lot of good music, but there's also a lot of division, like racially and socially.
Yeah.
So that was like a big part of my experience there. It was just like I felt very divisive.
I've been to Cleveland a few times, and it seems like right now everything is, and this could be just me from the outside looking in, seems kind of built around the sports stadiums right in the middle of the city. Like you got where the Indians play and where the what is their
Cavs,
the Cavaliers,
the
wow.
Browns.
Sports fan, clearly, where the Cavs play, like they're all right there, and there's a bunch of bars and everything. And then, is that a fairly new development, or has it always been that way?
That's always been.
That's
that
always
way.
been there.
Yeah, that's Cleveland. I mean, it's like a small town, big city kind of vibe to it. So it's like, yeah, it's like there's a lot of people who live there, but like there's a lot of like it's very one track minded. Like people are like on their own paths throughout each period of that, and like. There's a lot of great people who live there, and a lot of people who I love who live there. But it just felt very suffocating for me because I've always wanted to be outside of. I just wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't even like I hated the fact that it was a small town. Like I loved it. Like it was a cool place to be. But I just felt growing up there, going to high school there, like being a black kid who was into like architecture and swimming and like random stuff. Like, everyone would just be making fun of me all the time.
Really? Yeah. Tell me about that racial divisiveness there. Is it a very kind of like is it like a wrong side of the tracks type of city in a literal sense?
I mean, yeah, there are like parts of it. Yeah. I grew up like pretty middle class, like, but like it was definitely kind of a scenario where, yeah, if you weren't like fitting into a particular box that people were familiar with, you would definitely get made fun of, and you know, like people would just fuck with you, you know?
Yeah, so you felt that kind of like smothering small town mindedness where like you had interests that veer outside of your sociological status or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, I need to get out of this.
Exactly.
Did you feel that from a super young age?
I felt that from a very young age.
Really?
And I didn't really know how to handle it. My mom was always just like, just like keep being yourself. You know, she would always tell me like, just don't Like, people are just going to be the way they are. Just be yourself.
I mean, that's fantastic advice. What did your mom do for work? What was she doing?
She was actually a lawyer.
She's a lawyer?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your dad, what was he doing?
He was a doctor.
Oh, you got a lawyer and a doctor?
Yeah, the Huxtables, man.
And now you're a musician. Are they like, what are you thinking going into music? You could have been
No, like they were actually, like, my dad honestly didn't even have a say, so I didn't even have to think about it. But my mom was always just like very, you know, she was just kind of like, hey, like, just want you to be happy, you know.
Do what
like,
you do.
I didn't even end up going to school for music, so I didn't know I was even going to be any musician until like 3 years ago.
Yeah, you say dad didn't have a say in it. Did they get divorced young?
Yeah. He got divorced like when I was like 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Would you see him at all?
Yeah. No, I saw him. He
still
up.
Stayed in Cleveland?
No, he actually moved to like Richmond Pittsburgh. I don't even know. He moved back to Seattle or something. Yeah.
Would you ever have to fly out to Seattle to stay with him if you were in trouble and shit like that?
Yeah, I would stay with him in the summertime.
In the summer?
Yeah.
How was that transition? Did you feel it when you would go to Seattle? Did you miss Cleveland, or were you like, oh, Seattle, this is my shit?
No, I loved Seattle. Yeah, it was cool. It was just different. Like, it was so pretty out there.
Yeah.
I really liked the nature and just like being with my dad, like, very young. It was cool.
That's tight. Yeah. So when do you first start to notice this kind of like outsiderness that you had in Cleveland? Is there any particular memory that sparks like this is the moment that I knew, like?
Yo, so this is really funny. When I was like 6 or 7, and I was in like daycare or something after class or whatever, and I was building blocks and stuff, and there's this one dude, I think his name was Adam. I can't remember.
Adam.
Yeah, dude. But we were building together and we were talking, and then next thing you know, it was like, we were talking about sports. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, I love Michael Jordan. Like, he's so great. And then he, like, just for no reason was just like, yeah, you know Michael Jordan's white, right?
What?
Yeah. And I was like, no, I don't think he is white. But then he was like, no, he's white. Like, I talked to my mom, and we're both like, what, 6 or 7, like, really young. And I was just so upset that he kept saying that to me, because I was like, no, he's not. And like it's just not a fact. You know?
Right.
Just like, but like being like who I was just kind of like it got to me.
Yeah.
And then like the teacher came and was like, yo, what's going on? Like, why are you guys fighting or something?
Because you like got emotional.
Because I got emotional about it. I was like, yo, you're stupid. Like, you're just dumb. And then like, and then they tried to be like, oh, well, you know, like, you guys just need to figure it out. Instead of literally just being like, he's not black. He's not white.
He's not white. He's a black man.
He's a black man. Like, but like also like, this is just the stupidest thing to be. And then like they called my mom. They didn't call his mom. They called my mom.
Wow.
And they were like, your son is like being out of hand.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, I was like 6 years old.
And at that time, you probably aren't processing like that you're getting picked on by the authoritative figure because you're a young black child. But like, that's in America, such a sociological statistic of like, you know, black children are more likely to get detentions than white children for the same offenses or whatever. You
Crazy.
know? It's like they set you up for the fucking prison industrial complex. Is wild.
No, I know.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
And so around 6 years old, you're like a classically trained musician, yeah?
Yeah.
Did you start taking lessons at that young of an age? Was your mom like, hey, let's sit down at this piano, or what?
Yeah, no. So my mom was like, she asked me if I wanted to do like, well, actually, you know, like I was really into movies.
Yeah, that was your thing.
That was my thing. But I saw Aladdin and I was like, oh, sick, like Aladdin. I love that.
What a movie.
Yeah, as a kid, I was like, dope.
Shout out Robin
6 or
Williams.
7. Yeah, exactly. And then they were playing this instrument that I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was the flute, but I think it was some sort of like gourd instrument. But like, Mom, can I play the flute? And she was like, sure, like, let's try that. You know, she was very embracing to like what I was like.
All because of Aladdin.
Yeah.
That's
Aladdin
amazing.
was the. And
so you pick up the flute, that's your first instrument.
Yeah.
At
7 years old.
7 years old. Wow. And so, you know, that's very early as compared to when kids get into instruments often in like middle school or something. So she's seeking out private lessons for you and you're going after school all the time.
Yeah. No, exactly. So I started taking private lessons at 7. At the Cleveland Music School Settlement. Okay. And I had a teacher who, funny enough, I just reconnected with like 19 years later.
No
but
way. That's tight.
He lives in Brooklyn. His name's, shout out Greg Pattillo. But
shout out Greg Pattillo.
Yeah.
Oh, so you like get to hang out with him in Brooklyn now and shit?
Yeah, he's got
tight.
a kid and like a family and stuff.
Yeah.
But when he was teaching me, he was probably like 22.
Yeah.
And he was just like this young, really, really talented flute player who actually was like kind of a flute sensation. He went like viral when YouTube was just starting out.
Yeah.
And he did this
like
thing called the beatbox flute. Yeah.
I remember that. That's him?
Yes, him.
That was
dude.
your teacher?
That was my teacher, man.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's really tight.
Really wild, right?
Yeah.
Like, so he was living in Cleveland at the time, and he just graduated from his college degree in music. And he started teaching me, and he was my teacher for 2 years. And then he got this job in China and moved. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the place? The Cleveland Academy of Music?
Cleveland Musical Settlement.
What's that all about? That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's like they have like private lessons and teachers and people who worked at the orchestra or was affiliated with the orchestra. Because another random thing about Cleveland is that they have one of the top orchestras in the world.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like the Vienna Orchestra and then Cleveland. It's so weird.
Wow.
It's like, yeah.
Did you ever go through any processes to play for the Cleveland Orchestra? Or did you ever try out for a seat or anything? Or it's like,
no.
It's like worldwide?
It's
like,
worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
And like they get flown all over the world to do this kind of stuff. So it's a very, very prestigious thing to get involved in.
And so the settlement is kind of like tied into that somehow or no?
Sort of. Like people will like be affiliated with it, but it's not technically the Cleveland Orchestra.
Yeah.
It's just like kids will be like brought in who are like very good and like will go there kind of thing. But
when you had the flute in your hand, did you feel like an instant connection to it, or did it take some time for it to grow on you, or like you know what I mean? Like were you, I'm sure when you saw Aladdin, you're excited to get the flute, but then when you actually have it in your hand and it doesn't make any noises like you want it to, I'm sure it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. No, it was a frustrating thing for me, and I kind of just stuck with it, but it was mostly because my mom was like, you should like keep going, you know, and like any kid is not going to be excited to play Baroque,
right?
And like Handel pieces, like, you know, and so I did enough of it. Like I did it, and like I didn't really enjoy it, but then I think I was just lucky enough to have a teacher who was really cool, man.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, let me show you these blues scales, and let me show you how to beatbox flute, and all this random stuff that he was just like working on.
Yeah, so he could like make this instrument that most people look at as like this kind of background instrument. Yeah. It's not a lead instrument a lot of the times, and he made it look super cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so did you start to did you get pretty good by the time you're 9 and he has to take off to China? Were you like figuring stuff out?
Yeah, I was starting to. Yeah. You know, I was always really bad at reading.
Yeah.
But I could really
reading the music.
Yeah. I was always really bad at that. Yeah. But I was really good at just hearing it and being able to play it. So I was very like, I just had a natural ability to just be like, if he played something, like I could play it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
What do they call that? I mean, that's not like
improvise.
Oh, okay,
improvising.
Yeah. Okay.
Sort of.
Yeah. Do you have like perfect pitch where you could like pick out a note and play it? No.
I wasn't like that, but I was like relative pitch.
I got you.
So I could sort of like
figure it out.
Yeah.
So when he moves to China, what's that like for you? Are you bummed?
Yeah, man, I was super bummed
because like I was a big brother that you're losing.
Yeah, I mean, I really looked up to him a lot, and so it was just really crazy for me to think about what I would do next. But I ended up taking lessons again, and I got a new teacher, and I ended up taking lessons until I was 18.
Wow, all the way through private lessons.
All the way through,
and then you played in high school bands and all that stuff too?
Yeah, I was in high school bands, and I learned the saxophone for the jazz band in high school.
Right.
So it was all kind of like...
Forgive my ignorance, but is the flute somehow also considered a woodwind?
It is.
It is a woodwind, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so was moving from flute to saxophone a pretty intuitive, or like a lateral movement where like a lot of the fingering is the same? I
feel like flute and saxophone is like, I would compare it to almost like Portuguese and Spanish.
Yeah.
It's like they're sort of similar.
You could probably understand some of the phrasing or what have you.
So all of the keys are almost the same up until like you get to another octave, and an octave is just like,
and then once you know the saxophone, you can switch to like oboe and other shit pretty easy, or no? Or like not oboe, clarinet?
Clarinet is sort of similar too.
Yeah.
But oboe is definitely not
similar. Not oboe, that's not what I meant. I meant clarinet. But I only know that because my dad used to play sax, and so in my basement we got old saxophones, and then for some reason he's got a bunch of old clarinets too, and I was like, oh, he could play both of these. That's probably, they must be the same.
A lot of people who are playing saxophone double on flute or clarinet.
Okay,
they're pretty similar, like...
Yeah, but you say you're into movies as a kid. That was like really your shit as your hobby. So were you kind of just spending a lot of time alone watching movies, or was it something you partook in with friends? Was that your escapism?
I would just watch movies on my own, or with my friends.
Yeah. What kind of movies were you into other than Aladdin?
Man, like I was into this random movie. I think it was called The Chicken something, like Chanticleer. I don't even remember what it was called. Like Balto.
Okay.
Balto. I really liked action movies. Like I hated horror movies. Like I was so like, I got so scared as a kid. It was crazy.
Was it something where you thought maybe film could be a passion of yours that you wanted to get into? Were you like trying to ever direct home videos or anything like that?
No, I never really. I was always like too shy to do something like that. But
how else did your creativity come out as a kid? Were you a visual artist? Did you draw a lot?
Yeah, I like to draw a lot. I also really was into architecture. I thought I wanted to be an architect when I was like 8 or 9.
Not to be
so weird.
Not to be honest with Mr. Me Too, but like my mom was convinced I was going to be an architect.
Really?
I think that's, and we're also both left-handed. Yeah. I used to draw a lot as a kid, was super into movies, et cetera, right? So I'm not trying to just relate here. I'm just saying I feel like there's some kind of themology here where it's definitely. Like a lot of people, I don't know, like I think that architecture seems like this safe spot for parents that have good jobs where they're like, oh, you're a creative kid, but you could still make money. Let's go into architecture. You know what I mean? That way you could draw but actually have a real job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Were you into Legos too then and erector sets? Is that what that meant?
Man. Yeah. I love that.
Hell yeah. That was my shit because that's like baby blueprints. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Baby blueprints. I like that.
Yeah, that's what it is, man.
That's great.
So, okay, you're getting through. And then I would imagine you're probably pretty studious then. If you got a doctor for a dad and a lawyer for a mom, you probably got really good grades.
Yeah.
Read early.
Yeah.
Were you a big reader too, like on your personal time?
I didn't like reading.
No.
I did not like it. And my mom was always like, okay, like that's fine. But I was always like, I liked to listen a lot as a kid. Like I was always into listening to audiobooks.
Oh, really?
Or, like visual. I was very audio and visual. I didn't like to read.
Who was the bigger music listener in your family, your mom or your dad? Who had the better record collection?
They were both actually killing with the records, which is kind of funny because my mom's taste is great, but it's totally different than my dad's. Like my dad was like super into like a lot of like hard hitting jazz, like Russ on Roland Kirk, like Miles Davis, obviously Coltrane, Parker, all those guys. But then he like dabbled in the funk lane, but then my mom was really into like Nick Drake, Joni Mitchell, like Hall & Oates, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then like they kind of just converged, and then it was just like that's where my taste kind of like.
I mean, and that's no coincidence that both your parents are super into music. I mean, that's how you get an offspring like you that like that has the music in their blood. You know what I mean? What was their medium? Were they listening to records or CDs or tapes?
They were listening to vinyl.
Yeah, so you got a good vinyl collection to
my mom has a huge vinyl collection.
To inherit one day.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were both funny because they both loved music and they would go to shows together when they were like in their 20s and 30s. Of course,
yeah.
But neither of them played music.
Yeah.
So it was kind of always like funny because they had such a good taste for it.
Right. Were there any times when you're like playing the flute and a record comes on and you hear a flute solo or something, you're like, oh shit? Like,
yeah. Well, my mom actually got a CD for when my teacher Greg, when he left for China, like she got him this Herbie Mann CD. He's like this jazz legend guy, and I remember like listening to that and being like, oh my gosh, like I gotta learn this.
Right. It doesn't sound like you're too lonely of a kid. You had a big friend base. Yeah. So you weren't just like tucked away, shedding, playing flute all the time. You're out doing normal kid shit. So like, what else were you into around Cleveland? Like, how do kids have fun there? Are you out riding bikes all over the place and playing sports and shit? Or was it something where like some neighborhoods you couldn't go into in Cleveland?
Yeah. I mean, Cleveland's also like, I feel like it's also kind of like LA in the way that it's like there's a bunch of little neighborhoods. Yeah. And you can't really go outside of those neighborhoods because it's just like everything is just far. Yeah. This is really far away.
Yeah, totally. I
so
got
you couldn't
it's built
really,
out,
like,
not
it's
up.
built out, not up.
Yeah.
And like there's a huge downtown, but like no one even goes downtown.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we used to just like, I used to bike around my neighborhood. I lived in this little cul-de-sac. So I used to bike around there and like we would just like have like snow fights in the summertime or in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Would like make like mounds and stuff.
Build an igloo once in a while, maybe like pile up the snow and dig a hole into it. Hell yeah.
Exactly.
One thing that I noticed when I visit Cleveland, I don't know if it's like this when you were growing up, but it's like it looks like such an old city. There's like tons of brick, tons of like buildings that look like maybe they're falling apart.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like looking, I know you grew up around that, but now that you've moved away, does it seem different to you where you're like, oh, wow, that's kind of a trip?
It is, and it's also very familiar to me because obviously I grew up there, but like it's a funny city because, I mean, it's like the Rust Belt city. Yeah. So like Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, they literally like were cities that were founded around building through steel.
Yeah.
So a lot of, when all of that infrastructure and all that kind of ended, the economy just tanked.
Yeah.
And so like these huge cities were built up, but then people like left the city itself. And
does the city itself have like a sense of depression over that? You know what I mean? Like, can you feel the kind of disparateness or something?
There's like this vibe where everyone's just kind of like, they're just trying to like puff their chest out a lot because it's like they're like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna stay here even though it's like whatever it is.
It's gonna come back. The city's gonna come back.
Exactly.
I don't know if this is a reach, but I feel like because it's this old city that has an old soul, and it's like almost, it has like, when you go from the outside looking in, it almost feels haunted or something. And like, but then within your music, I hear this like deep old soul feeling because you're a young man. But I feel like the things that you talk about and the resonance of your voice has this very old soul feel to it. Do you think there's any tie there, or am I just reaching?
No, I mean, I also genuinely think that me growing up in the Midwest had a huge effect on my creativity because so much of what I was doing was insular. Yeah. And if you're living on the East or the West Coast, it's like everyone has access. Everyone has access to stuff. And like when you're forced to like literally like look for it. Yeah. You know, it kind of gives you this whole new breed of creativity that can sometimes manifest itself in ways that it wouldn't have if you were. Yeah. If I grew up in Brooklyn and like everyone around me was rapping,
you would have been a Brooklyn scene kid.
Yeah, I would have just, I don't know who. Yeah. I mean, maybe life would have been a little bit more like familiar to me. Like I might have not had as brutal of a like racial kind of divide because people are like a lot, you know, New York is New York.
That totally makes sense.
But at the same time, I think growing up in Cleveland, it did allow me to just kind of like figure things out for myself.
Thanks for tuning in. Skullcandy wanted to show you some love for listening by hooking you up with 15% off your next purchase. Head over to skullcandy.com and use the code YouFeelMe19 at checkout to get 15% off anything site-wide. Yeah, around that time, when you are looking for the things that like speak to you, you know, I usually think that's around age 13 or something is when people find those records that just resonate with them forever. Yeah. Who were those people that you were looking for and found that really changed your outlook on what music could be or what you you know what I mean?
Man, it's such a weird mix, man. Yeah. I mean, like, my first inclination was for, it's like I was really into punk. I was really into Green Day.
Yeah, of course.
Loved Green Day.
Dookie, or what record got you into Green Day?
It was honestly the one right after Dookie.
Yeah, with
Jesus of Suburbia.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boulevard of
Broken
Dreams.
Own, here we go.
Yeah, those are, I love that whole album, man. Yeah. I was like, I played that front to back growing up. And also I was really into, Creed, dude. Like, I was
really?
I was really into
I've never heard anyone admit that.
I know, man.
Wow.
I'm going to say it right here, right now, bro. Human Clay was my shit.
There you go. We found him.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Congratulations, we got him.
Yeah.
I also really liked Miles Davis, Kind of Blue.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really, really formative record for me because, like, my dad used to play it, and then I would just, like, it was probably when I was, like, 15, 16.
Yeah, right.
Was when I started to really get into jazz, and that was, like, a huge record for me.
Did you go farther into the punk rock shit, or was Green Day kind of like was that the tip of the iceberg?
I think that was the tip of the iceberg for me because, like, I mean, I had friends who were really into like Hawthorne Heights and like
metalcore shit. Almost.
Yeah, and that was like just that wasn't for me. But I definitely liked the melodic, but also like
a little edge to
it that Green Day had. I was like really into that.
Yeah, and at that time you're all in high school bands, or like junior high bands and all that stuff.
Yeah,
was that your people? Were you like a band kid, or were you were you somebody that was a chameleon, group to group, like got along with everybody? Like, what was your kind of
no, I was.
How did you survive socially?
I was such an outsider. Like,
yeah,
but that was mostly in I guess it was like 7 to like, well, yeah, when I first went to school, like that was like pretty shit, and then 7 to like my middle school was dope. Like I actually love my middle school. I went to a Jewish Montessori middle school where it was like just a bunch of random kids who got into this school. Like you had to like apply to get in.
Yeah.
And
do you apply on a certain strength? Like, did you apply because of music, or is it just like grades?
No, they just like it was like grades.
Yeah.
Academics.
Awesome.
So like I got in, and then they accepted me, and then I went there up until 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then high school was terrible for
really?
me. Yeah.
Why terrible?
Because I went to an all-boys Catholic school.
Oh, wow.
And it was very not, I mean, the fact that it like whatever, but like it was just like being in an all-boys school was just like very difficult because and like the vibe was just totally different. So
just
like
so much like fucking toxic masculinity.
Exactly. And to give you a perspective, like my middle school was just so much like they just celebrated every holiday. Everyone was like super open. It was might as well have been a Quaker school.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
But then like I went to like a Catholic all boys school where everyone was like everything was just black and white. So it was just like such a transformation for me, like socially.
Yeah. Did you feel that even in a literal sense? Like the black boys stuck with the black boys and the white boys stuck with the white boys?
Exactly. And then I got made fun of by everyone.
You feel
bro.
stuck in the middle.
I was the Oreo, but like black kids would make fun of me and white kids would make fun of me.
Earl Sweatshirt has
like,
this line that he says where he says like too white for the black kids, too black for the white or something. Is that how you felt?
Exactly.
Yeah. What is that, man? Like, what did you learn about yourself during that time in hindsight? Like, what are the coping mechanisms when you're feeling that sort of outsider and loneliness?
I just didn't talk to anyone.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had like one friend.
What was he like?
He was okay.
Still friends with him?
No. Unfortunately, I mean, it was unfortunate that we had a falling out, but we were cool for a while, mostly because he was mixed race.
Yeah.
And like I'm not, but like for some reason we just like always like talked, and like we could just, I don't know, we just connected off of just like both kind of being like, well, I don't know, like what's going on here, because like he would just kind of like, we were like, he kind of showed, he was the reason I actually kind of got into dubstep.
Oh yeah.
So like I was like in this dubstep phase.
That's interesting. You could hear the little kind of dubstep influences on a few songs here and there. Like, I think like, I mean, the big hit Cold War, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have like absolute dubstep influence, but I could feel the kind of like song structuring where it isn't too far removed from a dance hit. Does that make sense?
I see you.
Yeah, like it drops a little. It doesn't have like a drop, but it drops, and you're like, ooh, you know, you feel a certain way.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, I just went through so many phases of music, man. Like, and like there was a period where it was like in high school, I just literally was listening to like Lil Wayne, Drake, and like dubstep. It was just like that was all I listened to.
Yeah.
And like I didn't really know where to find music. It was just like he would find it, and then I would just like be like, cool, this is interesting.
Were you writing songs at that point yet?
No.
What were you into? You said track and field, yeah?
Yeah, I was in track and field, and then I was like swimming as well. I was also like sailing in the summer. So like I was on the sailing thing, and then
did the grades stay up the whole time though in high school, even though you're even though you're feeling distraught? So when you're going to college, did you kind of have like the pick of wherever you wanted to go?
Not quite.
Yeah.
I was like pretty good at, like I wasn't like the best student. Like I had like a 3.7.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
You know, but like.
And so, did you move to New York straight for college?
No, I went to DC actually. I went to GW.
Yeah, and how was DC as far as like? Was there any culture shock from Cleveland to DC?
No, I love DC.
You love DC?
It was easy, like right off the bat.
Did you feel like in college where perhaps people are starting to come into their maturity and there is maybe a little more liberal of a place, easier to find your people?
It was. It was a lot easier. But at the same time, like, I didn't even know who my people were.
Right, yeah.
Because I was just in this, like,
of course,
hole for till I was 18. I was like, okay, like, everyone just sucks. Yeah. So what am I even doing here? But I kind of just ended up kind of linking a lot with people who were, I ended up having a lot of friend groups in college. Yeah. Like, I had some people who were more, like, academic, and then I had some more people who were more, like, edgy, like, get fucked up all the time and, like, party and shit. But they were more, like, on the DIY scene. So, like, I was, like, in a lot of DIY bands. Sick. And then I had, like, a whole other group who was just more, like, not, like, fratty, but they were kind of, like, more bro-y.
Yeah. But you're finally finding a bunch of groups that can, like, speak to different aspects of your personality and people that are, like, being able to understand you, where it sounds like in Cleveland you weren't finding people that really were able to understand you or look past whatever their preconceived notions were, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
What instruments are you playing in these DIY bands?
I played saxophone.
You were playing sax?
Flute.
Yeah.
And then I started doing backup vocals, too.
Were you ever in a ska band?
I was.
Fuck yeah, because every ska band needs a fucking saxophone player.
It was actually like a reggae band, but we did like ska and a bunch of covers. Like I went to this jam session. We had a jam session every Friday in college. And I got picked up by this drummer who was in this band. They actually did some touring. It was called Lucky Dub. And we would just like he heard me play. He was like, yo, you should like join the band or whatever. And then I did. And then we just like would go on tour during the summer. And we would just like play the East Coast and
that's tight.
Do random stuff in like Ocean City, Maryland, and like whatever.
Hey, shout out to Ocean City. That's the first place I ever ate a crab was in Ocean City, Maryland when I was a child. Yeah, no fuck way. Yeah. Wow, so wait, what are you, like 18, 19 and you're going on tour already then?
Yeah.
That's tight. That's like some early experience to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you take to the road? Did you love it?
I liked it. It was cool because like it was so much like honestly the pressure that you have when you're just in the band is way different than when you're like the head person.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like because like I just would just show up. I could be drunk.
No take home stress.
And I'd just be like, yo, I play sax, like that's easy. And I just do some backing vocals. Yeah. And it was nothing. Yeah. And I just get a check.
Well, speaking of backing vocals, did you know you could sing?
I kind of did, but like I was always just like, I don't know if it would sound right.
Yeah.
Recorded. Like I didn't know what it would sound like recorded.
Because you got a talking voice that makes me go, oh, this is somebody that you could just tell when you talk that you could sing. But I have to wonder like when you figured out you could sing.
Yeah.
Were you a singing in the shower kind of guy or anything?
Sort of, but not like it. Yeah, I was just really shy. Yeah. I was really, really shy. Like the first time I ever sang, I did a cover of Lenny Kravitz's Fly Away.
Oh, love that song.
And that was like traumatizing for me.
Why?
Because I didn't know, like I just hated my voice. Like I was just so unsure of it, you know? And everyone was like, oh, you did so great. And I was like, oh, like, it just made me uncomfortable.
But even with that shyness and the discomfort of singing in public, were you secretly writing songs while you were in these bands, like for yourself?
Yeah, I was trying.
Yeah.
I was definitely like, when I really started to try to write songs, probably when I was in sophomore or just junior year of college.
Yeah. And I mean, what were they about? How did they feel? Like, were they early signs of what was to come, or were they really like terrible in hindsight?
They were just like weird, bad lyrics, like just like kind of weird like melodic structures.
Were you trying to record them in the dorm room or anything, or in your apartment, or were you they were just staying on the paper?
I was trying. I was like, I couldn't really link them though. The thing was like, because I started off as a producer, so I would make remixes and like find like sounds online and just make beats and stuff. Right. But then I couldn't link my ability to sing and play piano and guitar and shit to like the actual production elements. Right.
So the fact that you kind of had some understanding of music theory and some background in instruments probably helped your beat making process,
but I couldn't sing. Like I didn't know how to
bridging the gap.
Yeah, exactly. There was a point where I was just like, well, I can do this, but I could do that, but So
the beat making shit was starting to catch on though, right? Like I read that like Billie Eilish and her brother hit you up to do a remix, and that was like a big break. That was
before. I mean, that was like That was so long ago.
Yeah,
bro.
right.
It's
now
crazy
it's
to
long,
even talk about it, but yeah.
But like the shit, it grows so exponentially now, and time goes so fast. That's like even like 3-4 years ago seems like forever ago or something.
I know.
Right?
People are like, "Oh yeah, you did like a Oceanized Billie Eilish remix." I'm like, "Yo, that was like
forgot.
4 years ago."
Right, that was
bro.
like right. That's like a past life already.
Yeah.
So the production stuff, like you're putting it on SoundCloud, and are people catching on? Or were you going as Cautious Clay at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people were already catching on to the name.
Yeah.
But what was the breaking point where it became like, oh, I finally figured out how to bridge that gap?
Man, it was like really probably the summer of 2017.
Yeah.
2017.
So recently ago, yeah.
Yeah, because that was when I was starting to record. That was when I was like, oh, okay, like I know how to record my voice well.
Yeah.
But like I need to like refine it.
Well, being that you were a private lesson guy for your whole life, like did you say, you know what, I know how to fix this, I'm gonna take some vocal lessons?
Yeah.
Did you?
I did take a vocal lesson.
Did it help a lot?
It did.
Yeah.
It did, because I didn't take it. Like, I mean, being an instrumentalist, and I think a lot of instrumentalists are very guilty of this.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of respect for vocalists.
Right.
You know, and like there's this kind of thing like, oh well, like you can't do what I do.
You just sing.
You just sing.
You were born
it.
with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more than that. You know, because you lose your voice, that's it. It's not like and you got to train it. And
yeah, and part of those vocal lessons is learning to like literally not lose your voice.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. So, did you take the vocal lessons before the breakthrough in 2017?
Yeah.
And so
that was like 2016 maybe.
Right, and so you're figuring out how to like sing from your diaphragm, not from your throat, and all this stuff, and projecting onto the tracks, and all of a sudden it's starting to make sense to you.
Yeah.
And so is that when does the songwriting get better when you realize you're able to get the idea onto the track the way you hear it in your head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, I don't know how the songwriting got better, but it just ended up happening.
It's good.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just was like, oh, well, because I would write really bad stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, well, I want to make this interesting, so let me add some interesting words.
Right.
And then that was...
Because you're finding lead lines and melodies first and then kind of putting it together, maybe like a crossword puzzle or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I'm really good with melodies, and then I'll just write with a stream of consciousness, kind of.
Like, but when you write with the stream of consciousness, is it something where you go through and edit and re-edit until you get the words right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, man, 2017. That's like so recently ago that you feel like it all clicked and came together. So, knowing that things have been moving so fast, what was the big breakthrough to where people start talking about Cautious Clay? Like,
man, I don't even know.
Did you end up on a playlist or something? Like, was it a Spotify playlist that picked you up?
So the first song you released was Cold War.
That was the very first song.
The very first song.
Like, what the fuck? That's a high precedent to set.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know at all. We were just like, oh, I have Cold War, I have Blood Type, I have Juliet Caesar, I have Joshua Tree. I made all those songs like around the same time.
Right.
And I asked a couple of friends, and everyone, like, some people were like Blood Type, and then some people were like Cold War. And then I was just like, all right, Cold War. Yeah.
And so you just put it out with no preconceived notions that like, oh, this is a smash.
Yeah.
And it just starts steamrolling.
I put it out. Like we had like one contact at Spotify. We were like, yo, like, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, this is crazy. And then he like,
right. If
put
somebody
it
hit me
on
with
one
that,
playlist, and then it just went crazy.
Was it Fresh Picks or what was it?
I think it was like, I think it might have been Fresh Picks. Yeah.
And those are kind of the new, like, that's like the new MTV or something. Like, that's how people find out about shit now. So when it ends up on that playlist, what happens? You start getting, like, the phone starts blowing up?
I mean, it was just kind of like...
Slow?
Yeah, dude, really? I don't know. I mean, it wasn't slow, but it was like, people were like, yo, this song is dope. Yeah. Like, people were just like, this is dope.
Did you have a manager already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when it's like, okay, I got to figure out how to tour this as a solo act?
No. So
had you already been playing out?
No, we didn't play it out until maybe, because that came out September 2017.
Yeah.
We didn't even play a show until March of 2018.
That's so wild. It's not even been 2 years yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. March 2018 was my first show.
Yeah. Where you're in the front.
Yeah, where I'm like actually here singing and stuff.
How did you feel about it?
Ah, man, it was really scary at first.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like the more shows I've gotten done, the easier it is. Uh-huh. But even literally like this last show I played this festival 2 days ago at Bakersfield, Lightning in a Bottle. And like I felt like my energy is still improving. Like I felt like my ability to perform is still improving. And and it's just different aspects of it, because like the playing part was always like easy for me.
Yeah.
But then like the presence of mind is really where I've been able to grow as a performer.
Meaning like being more present in the moment, or being able to let go of yourself while you're on stage?
Like let go of myself.
Yeah, like not be so self-conscious.
And be present in that feeling, you know, because like when you have those feelings, it's like, it's so, the energy, it gives back a lot. Yeah,
it's like when you can kind of just catch that Holy Ghost on stage and like really let it come from inside, you know? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, shit, man. Just released a record this year, already following up Blood Type, And what's the response been like? Feeling good?
It's been great. It's been literally like, it's crazy because like no one knows what the single is or whatever, if there is one. You know, it's like a dumb thing. But
you just
like,
kind of put it out into the world.
Yeah, and it's just been great. Like, I'm really excited about it, and gonna be touring it in the fall. Yeah,
and so were you expecting any of this?
Man, dude, no, I wasn't.
Yeah, were you ready for it?
Yeah. I was.
Yeah. That's good. Are you finding the time to be able to enjoy it, or does the stress ever get to you?
Oh, I enjoy it. Yeah, I enjoy it. The stress is definitely there. It's a real thing, but I think every artist has that stress of where it's like there's no clear path, and that's kind of what we've signed up for. Yeah. And I think it's really fun, because when you find it out, you're like, yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm excited to watch you continue to find your path. I think it's amazing the steps that you've already taken in the past 2 years. I think you got a really bright future, and I look forward to hearing more music from you. So before we get out of here, tell the people where they can find you online.
And thank you. You can find me on all of the Apple Music, Spotify, cautiousclay.com. Yeah. Pretty much anywhere that you stream music.
Yes, Cautious Clay, a play on Muhammad Ali's born name, Cautious, right? Cautious Clay, Clay. Yeah, at Cautious Clay, look up this man's records, Blood Type, and I told you I'm terrible with fucking album names. What's the new one called?
Table of Context.
Table of Context. I told you I would forget. I was like, right before, I'm like, I was going to write it on my hand. Anyway, all right. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. My name is Lee. Some of you guys might know me as Intuition. You can follow me online at It's Intuition across all platforms. And this was You Feel Me, the Skullcandy podcast, where we talk to artists and athletes about life and culture. And that's it. This was Cautious Clay. Look this man up. Hey, thank you, man.
Thanks for having me.